This episode of the Old Dogs REI Network is brought to you by Mino Studio.
In a world where jobs are how most people make money, one man, one desire, one challenge dares to break the mold. Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network, where we don't work for money. Money works for us. Coming soon. Viewer discretion advised.
Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network, where cash flow is king. Real estate investing, the means, so you can enjoy your retirement dreams. This is the show where we cut right to the chase. No sales pitch, no long monologues, just simple how-to real estate investing advice, so you can earn the passive income you need to enjoy your retirement today. And now, your host and chief old dog, Bill Manacero.
Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network. I'm your host, Bill Manacero, and this is a show where 50-plussers and anyone else who wants to join us get solid, no sales pitch real estate investing advice to help generate real cash flow. This podcast airs twice weekly on Mondays and Fridays, and if you aren't already a subscriber, go to iTunes, type in Old Dog, spelled D-A-W-G, find our podcast, and subscribe. Well, today we got a fun show with you. We got a gentleman who is also a podcaster, but he is really an investor and who happens to podcast, kind of like what I'm doing here too. But well, let me tell you a little bit about him. His name is Joe McCall, and he is an avid family guy, which I like because I like my family too. And he enjoys hanging out with his kids at the zoo, or golfing with his boys, or swimming with his girls in the pool. Nothing's more important to Joe than God and family. Joe has flipped over 100 deals and helped students flip hundreds more. He loves doing deals and coaching students to do the same. One unique fact is that Joe invests remotely in multiple markets through automated marketing systems he has created. Whether living in Prague, the Czech Republic, twice for several months, or traveling around the northwest corner of the U.S. in his RV for 3 months, his teams flip multiple lease options and regular wholesale deals without him even seeing the houses or talking to the sellers or buyers ever. Joe believes that the greatest part of this business is that he gets the privilege of working wherever and whenever he wants, from home, from Starbucks, the pool, a condo in Colorado, a coffee shop in Prague, a farmhouse in Ireland, wherever. Well, this sounds like the life of Riley. You're probably too young to even know that term, but it sounds like a blast, and I want to hear all about it. Well, Joe, welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network.
Thank you, Bill. You know, you have the best podcast voice I've ever heard. I've heard good podcast voices, good radio voices on radio, but for podcasting, that's phenomenal. You sound great.
That's really funny that there'd be a different voice for podcasting and radio. You know, I'm flattered.
We'll have to talk offline about what kind of setup you have there, because it sounds really good quality.
Oh, great. Well, I definitely, if it's me, it's going to be cheap, but does the job. My motto in life.
Well, let me just ask you, is it a USB mic that you're using?
USB mic directly into my computer. So I have no mixing board or anything.
What kind of mic is it?
This is Old Blue.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Okay.
Can you believe it? Yeah. This is, I know it's like, I always wanted to go for the one that everybody features, the pictures that everybody has on their podcast pages, but I figured, well, I've got to put in a few years before I can qualify, to buy the really good stuff. So anyway, I started.
You don't need to buy anything else. What you've got is great. I do some of my podcasts from my phone while I'm driving in my big diesel truck.
I love
just
it.
from my phone. It's I don't think it's as important as some people make it, but you sound great.
Well,
Thanks for that nice introduction too.
Well, thank you, Joe. It's a pleasure to have you on. This is great. I mean, I have listened to your show, and I know you do an incredible job. And you kind of have what everybody like is aspiring toward here. You know, it was really funny because like the first thing I looked at when I started getting involved in real estate investing is I wanted to be a flipper. And but I lived in Haiti, in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and so so I was kind of looking at this and going, can I flip from Haiti? And everybody's saying, absolutely not. There's no way, you can't deal with the contractors and everything. But, you were like in Prague, okay?
Yeah.
so I'm going, okay, maybe there is a way to do it. But, now I'm already into this buy and hold stuff. But I mean, I'm just fascinated by your story, and I can't wait to hear the whole rundown. So can you kind of give us your story? How'd you even get involved in this crazy real estate world?
Well, I got my degree's in civil engineering, so I've always kind of had this systems mindset and wanting to create a tool or some kind of automation for everything that I can. And my wife and I got married when I was in college, and I graduated in the year 2000. I took a job with a big engineering firm and then traveled a lot, got tired of that, settled down in St. Louis. And I kind of fell into real estate by accident. My company transferred me out to California was supposed to be a 2-year assignment and turned it out to be only 10 months. So we rented our house out and had a horrible experience being a landlord with the tenant that we had in there. So, but at the same time, I had a friend who was buying a lot of coaching and education. And I started going through some of his courses, and I got the real estate bug. Rich Dad, Poor Dad came out, and got excited about this thing called real estate and being able to work for myself. So I got a new job with a new company after this was in about 2006. And I kind of like quit and was fired at the same time.
I've been there.
I like to say I quit, and they'll probably tell you that I got fired. But the reason why is because like I was doing my job, but I wasn't really, my heart wasn't in it. And, I was doing real estate on the side, and when I didn't have enough to do at work, I would do real estate stuff. And I'm embarrassed to admit that. I'm not proud of that, but I would do real estate stuff while I was on the clock. And, eventually they could just see that I wasn't putting in the extra effort. And so it was perfecting my performance. I was just getting the bare minimum done. And I felt really bad about that. But I saw the writing on the wall. I started looking for a new job. And then they called me into their office, my boss, to fire me, but I'd already accepted another job. So it's kind of like a long story. But I knew I wanted to do real estate, but I did not like working in a corporate, I called it cubicle. I did not like working in cubicles.
Cubicle, I love that.
And I thought there's got to be a better way. And my wife and I, we wanted to travel. We were homeschooling our kids. We have 4 kids. And it's not that we're anti-public school as much as we are really pro-homeschool. We like just the flexibility that it gives us, and we kind of get to travel and do what we want and take our kids with us. And so I started really thinking about my life. And at the time, I had my business or my job at the center of my life, and life kind of fit in around that. And then I heard this concept from some friends of mine who started a coaching program called Life and Air. Instead of Millionaire, it's Life and Air.
Oh, yeah.
And they talked about, it's a really, really great organization. And they started talking about creating a vision for your life first, and then building a business around that. So this concept of what do we want our life to look like? I don't want to wait till I'm 65 before I can retire and finally start traveling and seeing the world. I'd like to see the world now. I'd like to travel now and have that kind of freedom now and not have to wait so long. And let's take our kids to go see the world today. So we kind of designed, what do we want our life to look like for our family and for our kids? And, I made a lot of mistakes in real estate investing in between 2005 and 2008. I bought a lot of bad deals. I was counting on appreciation. I borrowed heavily from banks and private lenders. So when the market crashed, it really took a huge hit on me. And so it took me years to kind of dig out of that, even after the market crashed. But so I knew I wanted a business that would support my lifestyle first. And so we started focusing on that. And then I started doing lease options and wholesaling. Those are two different strategies in real estate. And I really loved it. I had a good time, but I was still working really hard. I was working 50 hours a week and then had a family at home and trying to do real estate on the side. I started developing systems so I could outsource everything. One of the concepts that I talk a lot about is if you look at all of the steps involved in a certain deal or doing a transaction, I ask myself, I write all those steps down and I ask myself, how can I get someone else to do all of that? How can I do none of it? And I'm constantly trying to ask myself that question. So it got to a point in about 2000, I quit my job in 2009 because I was making more money wholesaling part-time and doing lease options part-time than I was in my full-time job. So I quit my job and started doing real estate full-time. And I mean, if you remember those days, that was scary. The market was falling apart and the economy was really at its worst. But I was able to do deals and do them, quite a lot of them. So it got to a point where I was wholesaling deals. I was flipping properties without talking to sellers in my own backyard in St. Louis. And I'd occasionally talk to sellers, but sometimes I wouldn't. I would never see the house, and I wouldn't talk to or see the buyers. And I thought, if I can flip deals like this virtually or remotely in my own backyard, why can't we flip deals while traveling to Prague? So I'm trying to make a short story long here. But like my wife and I got married, we went to Prague through a student exchange program in the Czech Republic, and I took a semester of classes, engineering classes in English from the Czech Technical University in Prague, and we were there for about 5 months. Fell in love with Prague, made a lot of good friends there, and we wanted to go back. But at the time we had three kids, I think, and we thought, we had four. How can we go back? It's like, if you go just for a week, that's insane because it takes you 2 days to get there, a couple of days to adjust, and then 2 days to fly back. But can we really go for 2 weeks? And then I just said, let's go for 2 months. Hey, let's go for 3 months. So we started planning that. So we did it. We found a flat to rent for 3 months. We were there for about 2.5 months, actually. And we rented this flat out that was furnished. And I just did work from there. I just continued to run my business from Prague. And the coolest thing was because of the time zone change, I only had about 3 or 4 hour window where I could get real work done because that's when I could communicate with my team and, my people here in the US. So I was hyper focused during that 3 or 4 hours every day, getting a tremendous amount of work done that it would normally take me 8 hours back in the States to do. And so we would travel. When we were there, we would do all the touristy things in Prague. Then we would travel around Europe, had a real good time, came back to the U.S. and thought, this is amazing. Let's get an RV. A year or two later, we got an RV and we just hit the road for 3 months. And I did deals. I'd work a couple, 3 hours a day and we would flip deals. And at this time we were doing more traditional wholesaling in about 3 or 4 different markets. And all you need is a computer and a phone, and anywhere I could get a cell phone reception or Wi-Fi, I could work. So we got to see like 10 different national parks over those 3 months. Just had a really, really good time traveling.
What a blast. Wow.
And then a year later, we went back to Prague again for another 3 months and did a lot more traveling at that point. And I was able to just kind of now teach and share this stuff to people, teaching them how they can do deals while traveling themselves. So the technology today, it's amazing to what you can do if you really put your mind to it,
God, that's great. That's great. So, I mean, you obviously, though, have to have some people you really trust, though, that I imagine that are sort of making the big decisions on your end, right?
Kinda, yeah. The way I kind of do it now is there's two main people on my team when I'm doing deals in a market. And number one, it's a really good assistant or virtual assistant. So you could have a local assistant or a virtual assistant from the Philippines, but they need to be a really good assistant. So you're going to have to pay, what normally you'd pay a regular admin assistant $500 a month from the Philippines. You might need to pay this assistant $1,500 a month. But they're going to manage all of your marketing, and they're going to manage the CRM and the lead flow. So the way I do it is my VA kind of coordinates the marketing. We send out a lot of direct mail. We do some Craigslist stuff. We do some other little miscellaneous things. And then she has really good English. She answers the calls when the calls come in. And we put everything, all the leads get into our CRM. We use Podio. It all gets put into there. And the good leads get sent to a local wholesaler. So I partner with local investors. And so we do the marketing. We pre-screen the leads. We kind of manage the CRM and do all the follow-up. So every lead that's more of a suspect instead of a prospect, the prospects, those leads go directly to the wholesaler. The suspects, which are 85-90% of all the leads we get, my VA just sends them an offer, and we follow up with them every single month. And so anytime one of these leads turns into a potential deal, we send them to our local wholesaler. Our local wholesaler will go meet the seller. Sometimes my VA will just go ahead and schedule an appointment. When the call first comes in, she answers the phone or returns the voicemail, schedules an appointment. Our local boots on the ground wholesaler goes to the seller's house, gets it under contract, negotiates it, gets it under contract, and then just flips it to one of their buyers, and we split the profits 50-50. It's as simple as that.
Okay.
Now, for lease option deals, I will go ahead and typically just negotiate those myself because those are a lot easier to negotiate over the phone, a lease option deal. And then I work with local realtors or leasing agents that will put the tenant buyers in the home. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that does. Definitely. Now, the lease option stuff, how many of those do you actually have active, or do you turn them over pretty quickly?
Well, I don't do as many now as I used to, but most of the times I just flip them.
Okay.
Quick. Now, when I say flip them, like I'll get it under contract with the seller to lease option where I'm the tenant buyer, and then I'll sell that contract to a tenant buyer for a fee. So I'm just assigning the contract to somebody else, and then I'm out of the deal at that point. That's typically what I do with lease options.
Okay, got it. Well,
let me say one more thing too. We're now starting to flip land, which I'm really excited about. I love land. We're flipping vacant lots right now in the middle of nowhere, Colorado, and nowhere, Oregon. We're buying these little vacant lots for 15, 20 cents on the dollar, and we're selling them. We're turning around and selling them for 50, 60 cents on the dollar. And we're just now starting to get into a point where we're selling them on terms. We're creating notes and selling them on owner financing. And I really love that. That is a really easy business to do virtually, land flipping.
We had the land geek on, and
yes,
yes, and he fascinated me with that. But it seemed like the learning curve would be, there'd be definitely a learning curve there. But you already kind of. You've got all that stuff, you know how to flip properties, period. So you probably didn't have a lot to learn. I mean, I would think with land, other than, how to market it, I would imagine that'd be a little different than the stuff that you normally market now.
Well, it is a little different, Bill. It is different. So I looked at, I want to do land. How can I get someone else to do all of it for me? And so I found some friends of mine that had more time, but they didn't have the money. They wanted to get into real estate. They didn't have the money, but they had the time. I have the money, but not the time. So I told them, I said, listen, let's do this. We'll do a 40-60 split. They get 40, I get 60. I'll pay for all the marketing. And I actually went and bought several courses. Mark Podolsky's was one of them, the Land Geek. I bought these courses. I gave it to them, and I said, you learn this stuff. I'll pay for the marketing, and I'll provide the virtual assistant, and then you have systems and tools and stuff like that. So we're partnering together, and it's pretty much a 50-50 split after you figure in the marketing. And I don't know, we've done 20, 25 deals in the last year.
Gee
It's
whiz!
been
Wow.
fantastic. Yeah.
And are you where are you primarily? I mean, he does, or at least you mentioned on the show that he does like some eBay, eBay sales and that kind of thing. Where do you really sell those kinds of just raw land like that?
We're selling most of them on Craigslist.
On Craigslist, really? Wow.
Yeah. And then
That's
there's
amazing.
websites like landwatch.com.
Right.
But eventually, the more you do it, you start building a buyer's list. And there's a lot of guys out there, they're investors, and they want to buy vacant land. So they'll buy lots from us.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fascinating, man. That sounds like I've interviewed a lot of investors, and the ones that were engineers, which there is an amazing number of them that were engineers. It's great. I mean, they're really into the systems, and they wire these systems down, and they're just like kicking it with this. And so it's great to hear that you were actually able to do it, in an area that isn't probably all that common. A lot of wholesalers and people like that are, they want to see the land. They want to be more involved with the process as well. So,
well, here's one thing that I've learned that I think is the most important thing. You are not in the real estate business. You are in the marketing business. You need to get somebody to get your marketing done for you in spite of you, because marketing is everything, and everything is marketing. And so I've tried to be a student of marketing ever since I found out about real estate. And so I'm always studying and figuring out, okay, what works, what doesn't, testing new things. And I know that there's almost no problem in real estate that marketing can't fix. And I say that sort of tongue in cheek, because obviously there's some things that marketing can't fix. But if you've got enough leads coming in, if your pipeline is filled with leads, it does so many things. I mean, you start to now, you get a better selection of deals. You don't become all of a sudden a motivated buyer where you've got to have this deal, and so you become desperate. It gives you more negotiating power, because if this seller doesn't work out, if this lead doesn't work out that you're talking to, that's fine. You'll just move on, because you've got 20 other sellers to call that are waiting for you. So I think this is so critical. And if any success that I've had, I think it's been because, more important than the systems and kind of the automation that I've tried to create, I'm always doing marketing, right? I'm always sending out marketing, direct mail. It's consistent. We're doing other things besides just direct mail, but we're constantly sending it out. And every time that I see a slowdown in my business, and as far as deals go, it's because the marketing is slowed down. Does that make sense?
Yes. No, definitely. How many pieces do you mail out on a regular basis?
Well, that's a good question. I don't even know. When I'll tell you this, when we're doing land, we're sending out about, not much, 3,000 letters a month, not much at all. And then when we were doing a lot of regular wholesaling, we were doing about 1,000 postcards a week, so 4,000 postcards a month. Not a lot. It's just different. There was a time when just a year or two ago, we were doing deals in Tampa, St. Pete, Memphis, Tennessee, Las Vegas, and Phoenix, and St. Louis. 5 different markets. And we were sending out well over 10,000 postcards a month in some of those markets. We also do a lot of we have like a done-for-you marketing service for some of our clients. We'll do their marketing for them as well. So it just varies. We send a lot of direct mail. If it's not for us, it's for somebody else.
Oh, sure. Well, it's interesting that you now, I primarily am looking at multifamily properties, but we do quite a extensive marketing analysis, looking for those that are sort of at the beginning of the bell curve, that are early enough in the market that you're not only going to get good cash flow, but you're going to have great equity play at the end of it, And so it sounds like you do the same thing with wholesaling. I mean, are you looking around? Are there certain market indicators and factors that you have to take into account in terms of picking the areas where you're going to be marketing?
Yeah, good question. So, When you're doing traditional wholesaling, I like to look for the good cash flowing markets, right? It's so much easier to wholesale deals in the Midwest than it is on the West Coast. Like if you're trying to wholesale deals in San Diego, you can do it, but the homes are just so much more expensive. It's harder to find good deals there that cash flow. But if you go to Jackson, Mississippi, Lafayette, Louisiana, Birmingham, Alabama, you've got Indianapolis, Columbus, Ohio, Kansas City, Missouri, St. Louis, Missouri, a bunch of those kind of Midwest cities, and maybe even further south. You can find properties there that you can buy for 40, 50 grand that rent for 900 to $1,000 a month that are in good, solid neighborhoods. Those are great cash flowing opportunities, right? So if I was going to be doing a lot of traditional wholesaling, I would target those markets because there's a high demand for those rental properties, and those are just a lot easier to sell. You can usually get bigger discounts on those properties too, because those are in neighborhoods where only landlords are pretty much only landlords are buying homes there. So when it comes to lease options, though, I like to stay in my neck of the woods a little more, and I like to stay in not expensive areas, but focus on the median price range. So I only like to do lease options on pretty houses. I do not do lease options on the cheaper rental properties.
So what are you paying for a lease option house generally?
I'll just say in St. Louis, the median home price here, let's say, is $150,000. So when I'm doing a lease option, I want to stay in like $125,000 to $250,000 price range. I want to stay in that sweet spot. That's the median price range. If you took all the homes that sold in St. Louis and ranked them from low to high, and you do a bell curve, you got to stay in that middle range because that's where all the demand is. That's where the houses are selling the fastest. So if in fact, I'm thinking about doing a lease options challenge where I'm going to go into a new market that I've never done a deal before, and I'm going to sell this as a product for maybe $297 or something like that. And I'm going to go into a new market that I've never done deals before and document my whole process of going into the market, doing the research, doing the marketing, talking to sellers, making offers, following up, getting them under contract, and then selling them. And I'm going to document the whole process kind of in a public, private Facebook group or something like that. But just show what I'm doing to anybody who's interested in seeing it.
That's a neat idea.
I like that idea.
I like that.
And it's going to be a challenge going into a market I've never been to. But I just want to show people that, look, if I can do this, if I can flip a lease option deal in a city 800 miles away, then anybody can. It's really not that hard.
It's fascinating. That's great. That's that would be a neat thing to see. Just to see what actually happens, and I think it'd be encouraging for folks that are considering this too. That's great.
Cool.
I got to ask this question too. What's the lowest amount you've ever paid for a house?
About $10.
Okay.
Because again, I'm buying it on a lease option, right?
Right.
So obviously the house.
$10. Wow.
Well, that's my option consideration.
Right. Wow.
But okay, I will tell you another story though. We did a deal where the seller paid us to buy their house. So
no, that beats $10.
Yes, yeah. So I forget all the details. This is about 3 or 4 years ago. But we had a house that was so beat up in such a bad area. We told the lady, listen, how much are you going to pay us to buy this house?
It took you literally.
Yeah. And so she offered to pay us $3,000 to take this thing. She was just so sick of it. She was getting calls from the city. She was getting fines and taxes. She had paid taxes. She didn't like the publicity that was given to her. So there's some houses where you just have to tell the sellers, listen, there's no way I would ever want to buy this thing because it's not going to be worth it. It needs a full gut rehab. And in this neighborhood, nobody's doing any kind of rehabbing like that.
Wow.
So sometimes you have to ask a seller, how much would you pay me to buy your house?
I love that. You never know; they might take you up on it, right?
Yeah.
That's great. Well, what would you say in your term of doing what you do, what you would kind of look at as sort of your biggest mistake? And I'll clarify too, because I don't consider mistakes a bad thing. I think they're probably our best learning experiences, and so I actually look forward to mistakes, not not purposely looking for them, but I mean, I look forward to the opportunity I have to grow and learn, and hopefully overcome that for the future. But what would you say is your biggest mistake that you've ever done?
Oh, well, I think borrowing my profits early on a deal.
Mm.
So back in 2007, 2006 through 2008, I was buying a lot of properties with subject to, in other words, I was taking over the existing financing,
Mm-hmm.
and I was doing some lease options, but I was borrowing money from private investors. And they were safe, I had equity in these deals, but I would borrow some of my profits early, and that's what the gurus taught at the time. Some of them, not all of them, but some of the gurus talked about that. When you buy a property, you make sure that if you're putting a private investor in second position, that they're still protected with at least 10 to 15% equity in the house. But I didn't need all that money, right?
Mm-hmm.
I figured that the property needed 15 grand in repairs, in work to get it fixed up and ready, but I would borrow 20 grand, right? And I just figured, well, I'm going to get the profit eventually. I'll just might as well use it now.
Mm.
So what happened though is when the market crashed, all that equity, quote unquote, that I thought I had just completely vanished and disappeared. And I wasn't buying these properties on fundamentals, cash flow. I was counting on appreciation. And so, and I was way over leveraged on these things. So, within a matter of 6 to 8 months, I was underwater by, I was leveraged at 110, 115% on these properties. So I've paid back all of my private lenders, except one, and I'm still paying him back. But he actually doesn't want me to pay him off because he likes the payments that he's getting, so it's not a big deal. But yeah, I had a lot of private debt from lenders, and even when the market crashed, by the grace of God, I never defaulted on any of them. I reworked and restructured some of the notes, but I paid them all back. And that was scary, thinking about these people gave me their hard-earned money that they saved up for, and I was very irresponsible. I mean, at the time, it was fine. It was secured by real estate. I gave them a deed to the property, a note to a promissory note that was tied to a property. But the problem was it was over leveraged, and I had borrowed too much money. I didn't need to. I should have left myself more of a cushion, and I should have only bought that property if the fundamentals were better. They should have cash flowed a lot better. I would have completely survived the entire downturn if I would have bought these properties with. Now my rule is it needs to have I need to make at least 15% cash on my money for cash flow on these deals, right? So I would still have those properties today, and I'd still be doing fine if I would have stuck to the fundamentals. Does that make sense?
Yes. No, that's a great. You've got it. But it took the lesson learned to actually know that, Ro. I mean, it's the kind of thing you look back, and hindsight is 2020, right? I think, it's the kind of thing you definitely aren't going to repeat the error. But
yeah. But do you know what? Have you ever heard those courses? Have you ever bought one of those courses or heard gurus talk about that?
My brother was, he had like 7 houses, and all of them were bought right before the crash. They were saying, take the loans, the interest only loans, and I mean, all this, reverse amortization stuff. And he just got killed. You
used to be able to do that with banks. I mean, banks would lend you 100% of the purchase price plus rehab. And so sometimes you'd cushion those numbers, and you would borrow more money than you needed. And it's not like you were breaking the rules or anything. you could do that.
Yeah.
The banks let you do that.
They encourage you in some cases. Some of the mortgage companies. It's crazy. Well, what would you say conversely was your biggest success in the time that you've done this business?
Oh, I think learning how to wholesale deals in other markets from Europe was pretty cool. Looking back at that and thinking, man, we were in this 800-year-old chateau in France.
Oh, gee.
Right? And we were there for about a week, and I get this. My assistant was communicating. We use Slack a lot, and she would send me this picture of a check of a deal that we did, and I just blew me away. I'm thinking, wow, I don't know anything about this house, and I just made $4,500 or something like that, while in France in this gorgeous chateau villa thing in the middle of these vineyards. I was like, wow, this is amazing. I was very grateful at that moment. Still am.
Man. Yeah. That probably impacted your trip. You're probably saying, well, we're not going to have the cheap wine this time.
Yeah, we spent a lot of money on that trip, by the way.
What a blast. What a kick. Well, looking at our audience here, and I kind of explained this in advance about our focus in terms of our target audience, although we have a lot of folks under 50 that listen, but really our target audience are those that are 50 plus, that are either approaching retirement or already in retirement. And, they're looking at real estate investing as a means to be able to help them either supplement what they already have or maybe give longevity to the little nest egg they've tucked away. What kind of advice would you have for those folks, especially those starting out,
Yeah.
How would you recommend that they get started? And
have you heard of that book, How to Buy Real Estate or How to Get Wealthy in Real Estate One House at a Time or something like that? Do you remember that book?
Oh, man, it sounds familiar to me.
Building Wealth, One House at a Time. Really, really good, by a guy named John Schwab. It was first published in 2005, and it just updated and expanded it a year ago. Building Wealth, One House at a Time. I loved that book, and it's been a long time since I've read it. I want to read it again. But it's just taking the Warren Buffett approach, slow, steady, making sure you're only buying good, valuable real estate, sound fundamentals, and one house at a time. And so this is the really cool thing about this business is you don't have to have $1 million in the bank to retire, right? You can buy. You could have a retirement plan in mapped out in the next 10 years and be able to live very, very comfortably. So if you just bought 2 houses a year and set it up where you paid them off as quickly as possible, and you got rid of all of your debt, if you had zero debt, you could live very, very comfortably on $5,000 to $7,000 a month. And people think they have to be making, they have to have a $1.67 million in the bank account, and they need to have $10,000 or $15,000 a month. No, if you had zero debt, you can live super comfortably on $5,000 to $7,000 a month. And so then how many houses do you need to get that? Not that many. And you could map this out in 5 to 10 years. You could have all your debt paid off, and you could have 7 or 8 or 10 rental properties that are giving you the cash flow to meet all your needs. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, this is interesting because your focus is wholesaling, flipping, getting, turning these things around. Are you also a buy and hold investor?
I'm starting to get into that, yes.
Oh, okay. So you're starting to plan for your retirement then.
Yeah. I have to. One of these days I can't. But I love real estate, and the other thing we're starting to do now is actually starting to turn these vacant lots as we're selling them. We're going to be selling them as notes. Okay, so we'll start getting owner financing from land and soon to be houses. It's not that hard to start buying just 1 or 2 properties a year. Just make it a real simple goal, and try to buy them debt free. I know you can
pay cash for them. You're saying, right?
Yeah, if you can. Uh-huh. I understand the argument. You put it into a spreadsheet, and it makes more sense financially, according to the numbers, to use leverage and to buy these things with loans. But I would argue I would rather own 10 free and clear homes with no mortgage than 30 leveraged homes with all of the hassles that come with that. I mean,
I get it. I totally get it.
Right.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think a lot of the folks listening, that's a lot of them are debt free for the most part. They probably live in the home that they own outright, and who knows, maybe even their car's paid off too. I mean, they probably don't have a lot of debts, and nobody gets excited about doing that. In fact, when I started buying real estate, I'd been debt free for like 20 plus years. And so I had to buy my first property, and I gave my social security number and said, you don't even exist, because I didn't have any kind of credit history. So I had to buy a car. I had to get credit cards. I had to do these things that I like detested, but I did it so that I could get the credit that I needed to get the big mortgages and stuff. So, I get it, but my preference, I just own those properties outright. I mean, that's really the goal, and eventually just be able to just pay them all off, and then you've got something that's really worth something there.
Yeah, if you can buy them with 15-year mortgages, right, and just take all your cash flow and pay those things off as quick as you can. There's a guy, Clayton Morris. Have you talked to him?
Oh, yeah, I do. I know Clayton Morris, yes.
He's got a really good thing he calls a freedom number, and he's got this crazy thing he does with, I forget what, you take out a HELOC on one of your properties, and then you pay off your mortgages faster with that or something. I don't know. There's little things that you should talk to him, maybe get him on your show and talk about that. But for me personally, I'm on a race to pay off all of our debt and get our main primary residence free and clear. And once that happens, then I'm going to start buying rental properties. So, I mean, just personally, that's where I'm at right now. I want to be completely debt free, and there's always going to be good deals out there if you understand. If you're doing marketing, there's going to be good deals out there, and the cool thing now, it's easier than ever to buy deals in any market in the United States. I interviewed a guy on my podcast. His name is Rick Otten. He's from Australia. He does a lot of deals in the United Kingdom and in Spain, and he's starting to buy properties in Greece.
Wow, that's a little scary for me.
It is.
When you're going to a place like that where you don't know if the economy is going to even exist in the following year.
He's got the risk tolerance for that, and the cool thing though, he's not actually using his cash to buy these houses. He's just taking over the debts. So it's kind of, I don't want to get into all the technical details, but if the Greek economy does really collapse, he can step away from that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, I know this guy, and I met this guy actually. I don't know him, but I met him, and I thought it'd be really interesting to have him on the show because what he does is he buys one-bedroom houses. Mm-hmm. That's all he buys are one-bedroom houses, and he basically markets them to people on Social Security. And it's a way they can own their own home, have this home, and he gets the rent. He buys them outright. He gets houses for $15,000. I mean, he gets them for nothing, Mm-hmm. And he's got like 50 of them or something. And these people, they never complain. They don't call and ask him to come and do things or anything. He manages them all himself.
Here's the cool thing about this. A lot of people ignore the 1 and 2 bedroom homes.
Oh yeah. Okay? That's why he gets these things for a song. I mean, he gets it for nothing.
Those are great properties for a couple reasons. Number one, you can buy them super cheap because nobody wants them, right?
Right.
Number two, you get better, sometimes, generally speaking, you get better tenants in those homes. You're going to get somebody that doesn't have a bunch of kids. Now, I love kids, all right? You're going to get somebody who's maybe more elderly or a young couple that's busy and working all the time, right? You're not going to get the big families in those rental properties. And you get better quality people into those homes. And so I knew this one guy, and he does that in St. Louis. He only buys 2-bedroom homes, And he says, my only criteria is it's got to have 2 bedrooms and it has to have a little garage. And he buys these things super cheap. And the rents are not that much less than a 3-bedroom. They are a little bit, but not that much.
Yeah, he gets great rent on them. I mean, it's amazing, and it's just another way to. But it's easy in a situation like that to own your properties outright. I mean, you really don't want to have any mortgage with something that's that fine a line. You just barely you've got your markup and you're making so much per house, and these are people that don't want to move into an apartment, or they want their own little place, maybe even have their own little garden in the back, and it's like ideal. I got my own house, and they don't have to live in some sort of a senior home or something like that. It's really it's kind of an interesting concept.
Exactly. So you're getting the people that have the smaller families. Oh my gosh, there's some incredibly looking, beautiful houses here, little 2 bedrooms that don't need any work. They're in really nice shape that you can buy for $50,000-$60,000.
Yeah. Oh, I bet you could do better than that, depending on where you're looking.
This is just what's on the MLS.
Yeah, go to Ohio or Indiana. I mean, you can find these homes, for under 20. I mean, I'm sure you could. Mm-hmm. But anyway, we'll have to explore that one together, maybe offline. But I was just kind of curious about you do a lot of things, obviously, besides just the buying and selling of land and property. But you have a coaching business too, and I wanted to find out what really is the big exciting thing for you right now in your businesses.
Well, geez, I love working with people. And coaching and helping them. Like I actually have coaching clients that live in Europe or live overseas somewhere. Could be, I had a coaching client in Lebanon, the country of Lebanon, living in Beirut. Wow. Who was flipping deals in Oklahoma City. I've had clients in Malaysia, in the Philippines, in, of course, Canada, some South American countries. Like, being able to teach them and coach them how to do deals here. And that's been a lot of fun. I really enjoy, I get a bigger kick out of helping people and seeing them do deals than I do on my own. So like if I get a deal, make $5 to $10,000 on it, that's exciting. That's cool. But I don't get as excited when I have a student or a client that does their first deal or quits their job or is doing all of a sudden 6 figures a month. I mean, that's something that I get excited. I high five my kids. I hug my wife, like, yes, look at this, see this, I really enjoy that. And so, right now, maybe 25% of my income comes from deals, sometimes less. Most of my income right now comes from doing the podcast, coaching and doing my course and stuff like that. And I'm not embarrassed to admit that. I'm very proud of that. I'm grateful for the gurus that I've had in my life that got me started way back long ago, and I love teaching. I love helping people build their systems and do their marketing. I really get a kick out of that. And so I get to do that by doing my podcast and doing coaching and consulting. I get to really help people make a difference in their lives. That's what I really love about this business and what I'm doing now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's neat. That's really neat. Well, we have zipped by on the clock here. I could talk to you actually so much longer if I didn't have to stick to a time frame here. But no, this is really great stuff. Especially I want to find out if you're actually making money on your podcast. I want to talk to you off the air. Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
I haven't quite gotten to that one. But nonetheless, we have this, as we kind of move toward the end here, we had this thing called Wrap It Up, where I ask you a series of quick questions, and it's a way for people to get new resources and little tricks and tips and things of that nature from another very talented person here. So if you're ready, we'll go ahead and do our Wrap It Up.
Yes.
Okay, let's do it. First question, favorite real estate book?
Okay, I'll tell you, it's not real estate. It's different. It's the Pumpkin Plan. Does that count?
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Okay.
That'll work.
It definitely does apply to real estate if you read it, and it helps you really focus in your business. It's real similar to along the lines of the book called The One Thing. The Pumpkin Plan. It's really good. There's also the book One House at a Time, Building Wealth Through Real Estate One House at a Time.
Yeah, I'm going to put that on. Yeah, there'll be a link on our show notes for that one. I think that's a great
The thing
reference.
I like about John Schwab is he's more of like I talked about before, like Warren Buffett type of real estate investor. It's very conservative, a value-based approach to real estate, and it's not a get-rich-quick type of thing,
All right. Oh, that's great. How about your favorite business book?
The Pumpkin Plan. Mike Michalowicz, who wrote that book, wrote another really good book called Profit First. And
I've got that book. That's a great book.
I'm in the middle of implementing that right now, so that's kind of my favorite business book. It's all about, like most of us think about, it's revenue minus expenses equals profit. But he flips that around, and it's revenue minus profit equals expenses.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I have a call scheduled in just a couple minutes with my CPA. I hired this bookkeeper that is certified with the Profit First thing, and she's helping me set all this up right now.
Oh, wonderful.
You're going to redo. That's what I was going to say. You're going to redo all your books after reading that book.
Yes,
it's amazing.
I know. Mm-hmm.
How about your most valuable website for success?
Well, that's a good question. I don't spend a ton of time searching websites, but for real estate, I really like Bigger Pockets. It's a great forum. It's a great place to go.
Same here. Yeah.
Sometimes you get one thing I don't like about it is if you ask a question, you're going to get 20 different opinions. So sometimes it's hard to figure out what should you do.
Right.
But it's a great place to go to just network and to find people that maybe are doing deals in your city or in another market. It's a great place to find deals. It's a great place to just find resources if you have a question. Does anybody know of a title company that I can use in this market that will help me do this? And you're going to get somebody that can help you.
Oh, yeah. No, it's great. How about favorite app?
Oh, boy, I use Evernote. A lot. Yeah.
I got to learn how to use it. I just got frustrated trying to learn it, but I hear some people say, look, if you take the time to learn it, it's invaluable. So
yeah,
I just have to get serious about it.
I use it a lot.
That's great. How about favorite quote?
Jim Elliot is a missionary who died. He was killed on the mission field, and he wrote something that just ever since I was a teenager really struck with me. He says, "He is no fool who gives what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose. He is no fool who gives what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose." I love that quote.
I do too. That's he's awesome. Elizabeth Elliot too.
Yes,
some amazing
stuff. And then our final question: if everything you had, every asset, every bank account, property, you lost it and had absolutely no value, and all you had was $1,000 in cash, how would you use that $1,000 to relaunch your real estate investing business?
Boy, that's a great question. My first, I would save it for marketing. But I know I would go out and I could do deals without spending any money on marketing if I really wanted to bad enough. Like, I would just pick up the phone. Okay, and if I didn't have a computer, okay, I would use $1,000 to buy a computer. I would use $1,000 to buy a computer so that I could get on the internet, and I'd buy a phone, and I would just get on the phone and start calling rentals for sale by owners, realtors, property managers, and I would just start talking to as many people as I could.
That's great. That's great. And our final
question. Let me take that. Okay, I'll tell you what I would do.
No, okay.
This is such a good question. I would buy a cheap computer for maybe $300. I'd buy a phone for maybe $100. So then I have about $600 left.
Mm-hmm.
I would use that to send yellow letters to evictions, and I would find a really good 2 or 3 zip codes, and I would start sending letters every day, handwritten letters that I did myself. So that $600 would pay for the stationery and the envelopes and a pen, and I would hand address and write letters to find motivated sellers and do deals.
And you got postage on that too, right?
Yeah. So I'd buy stamps.
That's interesting. So the yellow letters really pull. They must really pull for you.
Yeah. Yellow letters work well.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Good stuff, man. This is great. People are walking away with a lot of excellent information. Well, there's probably a lot of folks listening that want to find out more about you and what you do and maybe inquire on your coaching. What's the best way for folks to reach you?
Well, if you go to my podcast, it's realestateinvestingmastery.com.
Great podcast, by the way. Yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
Realestateinvestingmastery.com. Or you can go to my website, joemccall.com. And those are the two places to go. You can find me on Facebook if you just search for my name in Facebook. I think you might find me. And that's it.
That's great. And you're on bigger pockets sometimes too, but not a lot.
Not a lot. I'm more of a lurker. I don't post much, but I'm there just looking.
A stalker.
I'm a stalker. Don't send me a message in bigger pockets because I probably won't get it.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
that's true because it doesn't always go through to email. It just kind of sits there and you go, this person wrote to me 6 months ago here.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, good point.
Well, we have come to the end of our show, Joe, and this has been really fantastic. I just had no idea that there'd be so much great information. So thank you for that. And but we're not over. We're not through yet. We have a tradition here at the Old Dogs REI Network that every one of our guests has to close us out with their best old hound dog howl. Okay. Now you're from the Bayou country down there, right? You're St. Louis. I mean, you're not far from, I mean,
close to the Mississippi.
Yeah, close to the Mississippi. So, they got, people with hound dogs that go hunting and stuff like that. So I know what a, good old hound dog sounds like. So we're just going to let you just close us out with your best old hound dog howl. Are you ready for this, Joe?
Can I hear you do it first?
No, that'd be coaching you along. Because, I got to tell you, the truth is once a year we have our Golden Howl Awards and we go through all of our guests and listen to their howls. And then our listeners vote on them. And we actually give them an award with a golden, like wolf or something on it. Okay.
I just dropped my headset. Okay. How's that?
That was good, Joe. That was good. That was really good. No, so, a lot of people that have been doing this for years, just they couldn't come up with a howl that good. So you done good. You done good.
Thank you, Bill.
I always tell my guests, this is the moment where everything you basically said, you've lost all credibility on. Okay.
That's okay. I didn't have any anyway. Thank you, Bill.
Not true. Well, thank you, Joe. Thanks for being on. We love having you and probably call you again and have you back on. I think there's a lot of areas we could zoom in on here. But I think you gave us a good overview, which is fantastic. I'd love to talk to you after you start doing buy and hold stuff.
Okay, that sounds good, Bill.
All right. Well,
thank you.
Thank you, Joe. And I just want to thank all our Old Dog listeners out there, too, for joining us. I know there's a lot of other things you could be doing right now, but the fact that you're taking the time to join us means a lot, and we greatly appreciate that. Please note, everything Joe talked about today will be in our show notes section at olddogsreinetwork.com/blog, and just look up Joe McCall and you'll see him there and be able to get a recap of everything and links and all that stuff so you can reach him as well. So that's the show for today. Remember, cash flow is king and real estate investing the means. Until next time, keep moving forward and may God bless.
Thank you very much for visiting the Old Dogs REI Network. We would greatly appreciate if you would stop by iTunes and let us know what you think of the show. We would love if you could subscribe to the podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and write a review. The more ratings and reviews we receive, the more visible the podcast will be to others. Thank you.